Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Revolution. Hello, Lucy. Thank you for your really kind words about my last talk, Lucy. That was really meant a lot. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Revolution Gathering, the Gathering. Evening, yes, evening over there in the UK. I mean, it's actually like 11 o'clock here in the Pacific Northwest. And it's a lovely, dreary day outside. Lovely, dreary day. So we're going to try a couple things today. So I prepared a tiny little talk, but we're also going to do a Q&A, a little Q&A. Hopefully Josh, who's been helping me out here and is working with Revolution and posts all our stuff and everything, is hopefully going to help out. But he wanted to go see the movie, so he might be getting out of the film right now, so he might show up, he might not. So if he does show up, we might share the screen and he'll read the questions. If not, I'll just go through the questions. Bloop, 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 bloop. Oh, look, there's my sister. For all you listening online, I can just see people who appear on my screen. One of the cool things is I'll just go ahead and write up my favorite part. I'm not going to get right into the movie right away, and I'm not going to talk about the movie. I'm only going to talk about the premiere. I'll do something separate if we do a talk about the movie. But I'm going to, one part, my favorite part is my sister's song at the end. Is really amazing, and you can get it anywhere you listen to music. So you can get it on Apple. You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on, I'm sure, YouTube Music or Facebook Music or any of those things. And it's really good. And it's a cover of my mom's song, Don't Give Up. So you should check it out. It's really awesome. I listened to it like 5 times. My daughter, Minnie, the other day, made me play it a couple times over and over again. Not make me, but she asked me to play it over because I told her Aunt Sissy did a song and she was very happy. Oh, look, James Chapman. What is this, a family reunion? Welcome to the family reunion. This is produced by the Gaithers, the Baker family reunion. Here we are, the dream we all dream of. Oh, even Steve Peters is here. Oh my gosh. I'm so nervous. So usually I give a little bit of an anecdote, but you guys know I got back from New York a few days ago. Flew out for the premiere. This whole thing is really wild. It's really, really, really wild. It's been, I talk a lot about dialectic here. And a lot about contradictions and things, and feeling both feelings, feeling good and feeling bad, and some people say bittersweet kind of thing. And that's what it's been. It's been very bittersweet, There's a lot of good and a lot of bad. And it's weird to have your folks back out in the media again, and it's weird because in some ways it's like, you feel like I'm 45 and I don't like to feel like an 11-year-old child. But sometimes I do. Sometimes I do get that feeling of being kind of that nervous kid with all this stuff coming out and around again. So that's been kind of tough and weird. What a weekend though, So here at home the other day, I was driving to the gas station, and this is what people are really tense in the world right now. People are really tense, and it's not just me. Because I was trying to take a left into the gas station, And I guess there were double yellow lines. I don't pay attention. I'm just trying to go into the gas station. And this guy comes behind me and he just starts nailing on his horn. Now, it's 2 lanes. He can just go around me very easily. Starts nailing on his horn. You know, and to the point where I can't look out the window. So I open my door and I go, what? And he's like, it's a double yellow line. You can't turn there. I'm like, I don't care. Just go around me. I'm getting gas. You know. And then, you know, so here I am going this way. And then there's another lady going this way. Now, both of these people have giant trucks. Nothing against anybody with giant trucks, but I'm just saying, they both had giant trucks. And so this lady's coming this way. All of a sudden, she rolls down her window and says, you need to keep driving, you mother effer, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and she has like bright pink hair. And I said, well, what are you, the punk rock traffic police? And she spit at me. And I was like, and then the guy pulls up and stops next to me. And I roll down my window and he's like, I'm going to kick your ass. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea people were so passionate about the traffic laws in Seattle. Pretty wild day. I was like, okay. Got my Diet Cokes, got my gas, went on with life. But I just say that because, you know, you don't know what people are going through. You know, I don't know what that guy was going through. I don't know what that woman was going through. You know, life is tough. You know, and I just wanted to be like, me too. I get it. So one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about today before we get into kind of the premiere Q&A that I told you guys we would do is humanity. I want to talk about humanity for a minute. And I think it's important, and I think it's within context. Particularly of my life and my family, but I think your lives and your families as well. So, as usual, I'm going to go talk about the Apostle Paul for a second, and I'm going to line this up with my own world, my own life view, and kind of how maybe we can respond better to others, and, you know, live in a life that's based in reality. And the problem is, I think often in Christianity, there's a lot of magical thinking, but I also just thinking also in just life in general. You know, people, when they get too involved in politics or too involved in this type of thing, we get this magical thinking and we start to divide people into good and bad and things like that. And we get that like, what's that thinking I'm thinking about? Binary. You know, we get that binary thinking that starts going on that we're like, oh, you know, well, these people, magical. It's like, for example, what happened this past week, there was the military blew up a car with 7 kids in it, and I believe 3 adults. And the military came out and admitted that they had made a mistake and what they did. But I was thinking, I was like, you know, if this happened under Donald Trump, most of the people I know and follow would be losing their minds. And it happened under Biden, and what I felt like there was a lot of silence, and I was really surprised. I wasn't surprised, I guess it's human nature, but it's just weird how we put on different lenses and how we make allowances for horrific mistakes for certain people. And then we scapegoat other people based on our own prejudices and our own ideals and our own magical thinking. And when the idea is that we really do live in a society that needs to change. You know, we do have a government that needs reform, not just conservative government or liberal government, but all the government needs to change. And I think hypocrisy is a two-way street, folks, you know, and when you start to pay attention to the small details, you start to see it. And I don't say this to say you're bad and you're a hypocrite. Why I say this is so that maybe we can recognize the own hypocrisy in our own lives, that we can see that we have the ability to pick and choose who we think deserves to be punished and who doesn't deserve to be punished, who goes to prison and who doesn't go to prison. You know what I mean? Like, if so, you know, I remember I had a friend of mine who does all this stuff for prisoners' rights, And then for some reason one day he turned on the TV and saw my dad on TV, and it got him really mad. And so he went on and he goes, how can you let this man still preach after he was been in prison, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going like, he served his time. You're for prisoners' rights, but all of a sudden now it's a televangelist who's not cool. They're not doing what you like or what you condone as Christianity or what you support as Christianity. So now everything that you're passionate about, you're willing to compromise in order to persecute this person because of your own prejudices, because of your own contradictions are being shown. And so I think we have to be aware of when we have those type of contradictions. Now, you all know I'm not a Trump supporter, so I'm not doing that there. I'm doing this to say I'm not really a Biden supporter either, to be honest with you. But I'm saying all this is so we can keep an eye on ourselves as well, that we can remember where we're at. So, hey, and if you guys want some ideas of what it's like for me going through all this, I did an interview with Vanity Fair, and I have to say the reporter was really amazing. There was actually a part that she had left out, and I go, oh, why did you leave this out? And she goes, well, I just felt like I'd ask more questions. She's like, do you have anything to kind of back this up? And so I told her a few things, and she put the quote back in. And I thought that was really cool because I'm not used to reporters doing things like that. And I felt like it was a pretty honest, clear interview. So if you want to kind of get an idea, because I know some of you are already have questions about that kind of stuff, and I might not be able to answer them all, and I probably won't answer them all today, to be honest with you. I have been so exhausted just mentally. But yeah, so think about that. Check that out. But also get my sister's song. I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of my sister. I'm so amazed by her. I'm so hoping that there's an album that comes out of this, and I can't wait. I believe there is. In the name of Jesus. All right. Romans 3. I want to look at this for a second. Romans 3:9 says, what then? Are we any better off? No, not at all. For we already charge that all, both Jew and Greek, are under the power of sin, as it is written, Jew and Greek. Now I love this because Paul is being inclusive. Remember, Judaism did not include the Greeks. So Paul's being inclusive here again, and we forget this stuff. Like Paul was like this guy who really built on inclusiveness, and that's why I don't like the pastoral epistles, because they're not Paul. Matter of fact, I'm going to go as far and say they're anti-Paul. And I want us to embrace Paul more because I think the church desperately needs the message of grace more and more every day. And we've got to be able to communicate honestly and transparently. We don't have, nothing's perfect, folks. But Paul says here, Jew and Greeks are under the power of sin, as is written. There is no one who is righteous, not even one. There is no one who has understanding. There is no one who seeks God. All have turned aside together. They have become worthless. There is no one who shows kindness. There is not even one. Their throats are open graves. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of vipers is under their lips. Now, this is pretty harsh stuff. I get that. But I want to look about how we can kind of see what Paul is trying to say to us. And I like how he says here, he goes, there is no one who shows kindness. I thought was really interesting. And of course, he's not saying you don't show kindness to your family or loved ones, but I think what Paul is saying is that we don't show kindness to everyone, and that's what this faith, that's what Jesus, that's what this religion, Christianity, is calling us to do. And there's no one who truly shows it, because we all have an asterisk by grace, we all have an asterisk by love your enemy, we all have an asterisk by love your neighbor, and we allow our own perceptions to come in and play on who we forgive, who we love, who's deserving of grace and who's not deserving. It's like we say, oh, there shouldn't be a scale of sins until there should be. You know what I mean? I mean, literally, that's how we are, you know. I learned so much when I first took my stance as being gay affirming. I learned so much of like looking at what Christians say and how they word it and what they do. and what they think about sin and how they think about levels of sin and not certain sins, and on both sides on the side that I was going, where I was affirming and an ally, and then the other sides where they weren't affirming and they thought it was sin, and in these conversations you see everybody's own, how their perspectives and how their emotions and how their own traumas in their lives kind of cause us to see how to see these things. And what we, sometimes the stuff we get the angriest most about is usually something that we're dealing with ourselves. We start to project a little bit. And it becomes very obvious, I think, when we see things like politics and we see how people react towards each other. Or like right now, where we see a lot of progressives being very legalistic with their progression. Like, oh, you're either with me or against me. They get really, very much like the conservatives were in the 80s and 90s, and so we kind of project on, all of a sudden we've become things that we did not want to be, and so all of a sudden that kindness is gone. Now we're in power, we're not as outraged when a horrific military mistake happens, and so this is for us to look within ourselves and ask the question, why? Why are we like this? Why do we do this? Now you go, like, Jay, what does this have to do with the eyes of Tammy Faye? I want to talk about the eyes of Tammy Faye. We'll get there. I don't take a straight road to any place. No one's going to get me. Zigzag, zigzag. Jump over to, if you're following along in your Bibles, because I know you all are. Revolution, I would always be at service. I'm like, going to turn to your thing, and I'm like, and I am the only one in this place with the Bible. Romans 3:21. I'll start in 22. 3:22. Romans 3:22. The righteous of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe, for there is no distinction between anybody. There is no Jew or Gentile, slave nor free. Southern Baptist or Assemblies of God, or, what are the other ones? Lutherans or Episcopalians. Since all have sinned, all fall short of the glory of God. They are now justified by his grace as a gift through Christ redeemed, that is Christ Jesus. Now the reason I read this is for all sinned and all fall short. And what I always liked about this is it didn't say all have fallen short. It says all fall short. Now, I know a lot of us don't like the idea of sin and that, I was born a piece of shit and I'm just a piece of shit saved by grace. I don't like that either. That's not my bag. But we all do have a lack. Something that we feel that's missing that we try to fill. And often pastors will be like, it's a God-shaped hole. You just need to fill it with God. And then we do that. And then we realize we still have this lack and we're still human beings. So I've always said anything that I think what Paul calls us to do and what Jesus calls us to do and what we're really to live a normal life, we have to learn to be comfortable with the lack, that which is missing within us, that the lack is okay, that the lack is not a bad thing. And for me, sin is anything that tries to fill that lack. What? Yeah, so anytime we're trying to, and that's why I don't like capitalism that much, because capitalism sells us this idea that we can be happy by fulfilling that lack. If we just have the right clothes, if we just have the right house, if we just have the right car, if we just have enough in our savings account. The fact is, though, is no matter what, we all die at the end. Life ends. So that's the idea, is that, if I can just have one more thing, that will complete me. And the idea is that none of us are complete, and we all fall short. We all make mistakes. We are all human beings. I remember my sponsor used to say, she said this about me once to somebody, that I was haphazardly human. But the more I've reflected on that over the years, is I realized we're all haphazardly human. We are all humans. We all fall short. And that's good news, believe it or not. Grace is good news. The need for grace is good news. It's because it's saying you're never going to add up. Stop trying to add up. Accept who you are. Most of us grew up in a religion with a type of prohibition. Prohibition, we always think about allowing alcohol. But this idea of kind of the opposite of trying to fill the lack is like, don't use that. You got to use this to fill it and not that. So stay away from that. It's almost like the tree. Like there's one tree, stay away from it. And now all you can think about is that tree. I bet you the fruit's really good on that tree. I've had every tree here. There's another tree. I just want to try it, What was it? Pete said there are these great rings that you guys have in America that make you think about sex and have sex all the time, and they're called purity rings. You got this thing that's telling you, I'm not going to have sex. And then so you look at it, and every time you think, sex. We have this prohibition that says, don't do this. And for me, growing up in Christianity, the majority of my life, I would say up until about 20 years old, I thought prohibition was a major part of Christianity. Now that I've studied it inside and out, I realize that prohibition is not a big part of Christianity. At least not in the way we've ever thought it was. It's not a list of rules. It's not a man in the sky with a rule list watching. Oh, he failed that one. Oh, got that one good. It's not that. But that's what I thought it was. And so I thought God hated me because I couldn't deal with God's prohibitions. I could not. Everything that was prohibited, I wanted to be next to. My unconscious wanted it, and I couldn't figure it out. Like Paul says, I try to do the things I want, but I don't. Now, why does this have to do with what I'm talking about? Well, here we go. One of the things about I have had to come to terms with in my life, and my sister's helped just recently. We had a good talk, and she really helped me a lot with this too, is realizing that even me and my sister had to make a huge sacrifice in our own lives, not one that we chose, to be honest with you, but we had to have a sacrifice of not having our parents all the time because our parents loved other people and wanted to help other people. And the truth is I meet people all the time who tell me, right now I'm hearing so many great stories about my mom, but I'll be honest with you, I've heard a lot of great stories even about my father and about their people's lives being saved, not taking their own lives, getting their lives together, getting homes. Enough that should give you enough fuel to live and be like, oh, I'm at peace with this. Unfortunately, that's not how my brain works. But now even folks outside of religion have their own prohibitions. We see this a lot with politics. When we hear the word politically correct, no matter which politically correct side it is, they have their own prohibitions that they live by and they live through. Zoe, for instance, when I first met Zoe, Zoe was talking to me all about my dad and all about my dad's book and how much he loved it and how much. So, everybody has a different journey, and we're all in this. But what I kept thinking about is that we've got to get to a point where we realize we're all humans. Like those two people the woman spit at me. I've not been spat at, and I don't even remember the last time. But God, what's her life like? That she's got so much anger that she had to get into a road rage conversation because she didn't have one of her own. What's going on in there? What's the prohibition? What's the law of classing two painted yellow lines? Why is this bringing up so much anger and angst? Because we all have these prohibitions in our lives that we resent. And then we don't see other people following it, and then we attack them because we think, because we don't want to follow them either. I'm following him, why don't you follow him? And I honestly believe that one of the things that my parents were trying to do in their ministry was loosen the prohibitions of their faith, but more of the customs of like, oh, you got to be miserable as a Christian, you got to be poor, no fun, no music, no movies, no makeup, no dresses, women have to wear pants. And I think they felt like we're going to go in and make it cool to be a Christian and people can be loosened up a little bit and we can bring it to everybody. I really thought that was I think they had kind of a tiny reformation in their mind that they were going to reform things a bit of like, we're going to make it fun, And honestly, I think they did a lot of times for a lot of people. They kind of gave them this belief that, oh, I can be human. I can do this. I can, all these prohibitions, all they do is cause us to want something more. So I think what we have to do with grace is accept that we're human beings. And what I feel like with my folks is that they were under this prohibition of ideas and that so many Christians had in the 80s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And they crossed some of those boundaries that some of them they should have, some of them they shouldn't have. But the fact is they were human beings. Like when we see people fall and make mistakes, often with religious people, it's sexual mistakes or alcohol or drugs. But it's this prohibition that's been set for them and that they've tried to live by. And then all of a sudden they realize, I'm fallen. I'm a human being. I have sexual needs that aren't being met, and I might actually go somewhere else. Or I might think about this, or I might do this. I may end up living life this way because I am a human being and I have desires. And now that I'm told these desires are bad, all I can do is think about these desires. You know, and what we have to do is take away that idea of going, like, it's not, why are they bad? You know, it's like, you know, it's like, well, why don't you cheat on so-and-so? You know, well, because it's the wrong thing to do. No, that's not the right answer, to be honest, because it's a sin. No, that's not the right answer either. You do that because you say, I love that person, and we have an agreement to not do that. And we do it out of love. It's not that God's going to, when you start thinking God's going to reject you for something, all of a sudden that thing becomes very desirable. And I think my folks had to deal with this with a great bit of fame, a great bit of this and all this. And so what I hope we can do, and the reason I say this, because people are going to see the movie and have their own ideas. I don't, you know, I'm not really trying to get into the movie today, to be honest with you. I'm going to talk a little about the premiere for you guys, but you know, because it's not perfect. There's things that are completely wrong in it. You know, there are some good things in it, some bad things in it. But the idea is humanity. And that's what one thing I liked is at least it made them a little bit more human. And it showed their human sides and maybe even some human faults. And that's what I think we have to go is say, people are human beings. What would I do if my feet were in those shoes? What do I do every day in my life? You know, just because they failed at their own prohibitions, just because they crossed their prohibition, what would I do if that was my prohibition? You know, empathy is pretty cool. You know, putting yourself in other people's shoes. You know, often when we've seen televangelists fall in the past or preachers fall in the past, and well, they preached against that. Well, of course they preached against it, because in their mind is all they're thinking about, and they're trying to figure out ways not to do it. You know, and so they fail. Oh, they're hypocrites. I can't believe, you know. I mean, it makes me sad that these people are hypocrites, but it also makes me sad that they're under the law, because that's what prohibition is. Now, Paul has come to say we're no longer under the law. We're free from law. Jesus said, I've not come to abolish law, but I've come to fulfill it, like literally make it fulfilled. It is finished kind of thing. I mean, Jesus even says that when he's crucified. It is finished. And we create a new law, so we create all these other laws. No matter, so if you're a part of different communities, any system that you're a part of is going to have its own prohibitions, its own law in it, its own do's and don'ts. You ever watch the fashion do's and don'ts? You know, and they put the little black guy in and like, oh, she wore that awful, he wore that great. You know, everybody has their little rules and their law, and Paul says we're free from the law. And we only make ourselves guilty is when we go back to the law. So what I'm asking is do we set up our own we have our own little law books that we judge by? Or then we buy into a system and we go, okay, we're going to follow their prohibitions, we're going to follow their laws, and we're not supposed to live in the law. Because the law is the problem that arouses these things within us, which creates the haphazardly human beings in us. And we're going to have to one day realize is that we're all fallen. We are all fallen. And for people to be hypocrites, no kidding, not a lot of people read Hegel because Hegel is very hard to read. I'm trying to read it, and I'm reading books about Hegel because I can't really read Hegel on his own, so I'll admit that. But Hegel talks about the idea of contradiction and how we all live within contradiction. Contradiction is within us all. And there are certain contradictions that we can change and other contradictions that we have to learn to be comfortable with. A dialectic that we have to learn to live with, of things that seem opposite but somehow come together in our truth, or even higher than truth, which I know you probably blows your mind, but when you get into philosophy, you start even talking about higher truth, or even when you get into psychoanalysis, higher truth, or higher than truth. You start talking about these things within our unconscious and things like this. We're very complicated human beings. It's very interesting. As humans, we're very complicated. It's not so simple. So if contradictions are within us already, there are going to be times where people see, who aren't thinking about it, hypocrisy. There are going to be times where we see that in people's lives, because contradiction is just part of being a human being. And we have to learn to live with that and allow grace to be there, because then, and with grace being there, with accepting, when you take away the prohibition, things lose their strength. There became a moment when I was 20 years old, maybe even 21, and I accepted the fact that God loved me if I was drunk at the club, dancing my ass off, trying to meet ladies, or if I was preaching at a pulpit. God loved me just that. No, it didn't matter. That grace was sufficient in that area. That's when I was 20. That's what came to me. And all of a sudden, those prohibitions disappeared. The law disappeared. Now, when the law disappeared, one of the first things I did, joined a 12-step group. Because getting sober for me now, it wasn't about pleasing God. It wasn't about rules, regulations, or anything like that. For me, all of a sudden I realized, I'm not happy anymore because the life I'm living. I'm not happy with the way alcohol is making me feel, and the things that it's making me do, and the things that it's making me say. It's causing a negative reaction. To now, it's not a sin issue. Now it's not a prohibition issue. Now it's the issue of, I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of being miserable. And this is not adding to my peace of mind. I want some peace. I want to grow. I want to grow as a human being. And this is keeping me from growing as a human being. But it only worked when I realized that the prohibitions were gone. It only realized when I was free from the law that, in a way, you could master the law. It's really funny that you have to kind of take those things away in order to be able to have the life you want. I think, what was the first thing that, if someone was like, well, how do you become a saint? One, I think you can't become a saint, and we're all saints because of grace. But I would say, have no rules. All is permissible, as the Bible says. All is permissible, but not all is beneficial. Go live your life. Because I think taking away those temptations, taking away those things, those forbidden fruits, frees us up to be humans and frees us to have a look at things in a different way. So let's talk a little bit about, that's humanity, right? We talked about humanity. And that's what I experienced, I think, seeing this film and interacting with people at the premiere and all this stuff, honestly. And we're going to get into this right now. So some people said, why did you go to the premiere? Why did you go to the premiere? And because we're so dialectical thinking, I have already had people attack me saying, like, I can't believe you, that you're giving this your seal of approval and all that. I'm not giving I'm not giving the movie my seal of approval. The point is, I'm comfortable with contradiction. I'm comfortable with the things of saying, it's gray. There's some things I liked and there's some things I didn't like. I want to go out and first say, like, Jessica Chastain has been like an angel. She's been amazing. She's been really nice to me. Are there things I wish I could have helped with more in the film? Of course. Yes. And I've told them that, and I told the director that, and I told everybody that. But I'm okay with being a part of something and not fully supporting it. That's how I live my life. If I'm going to talk to people I disagree with, if I want to help people grow and change, I'm going to have to be around people who think differently than me. I believe, in a diversity of thoughts. I think we often focus on the diversity of our images in our skin colors, and I think that's great, or our sexuality or our sex or things like that. But we often forget about the importance of diversities of thought. If everybody looks the same and thinks exactly the same, you're not going to get a whole lot of diversity in those places. You're just going to look great, but it's still going to have everybody's going to have the prohibitions and the laws that they agree with, and the certain things they don't. And for me, I want to be in a place like Revolution where we have diversity of thought, where there's some of us who have different political beliefs, different faith beliefs, different ideals, different things we think about, and it's okay. And you know what? We might argue, and we'll argue well. But at the end of the day, we know that this is a place of grace and that we can argue here. I've made it really clear, this is not a safe space. We're all going to just sit together out, because often safe spaces are just places you agree with. You're going to get triggered here. That's just going to happen. That's just part of life. I've never had a proper place where I get a trigger warning. I've never found a place where I felt safe. I've even gone into groups where they're like, this is a safe place for people who've been hurt by the church. And I went in and I started talking about my experience, and they're like, that's really not adding to what we're trying to say here. Could you maybe just be quiet? I mean, seriously. So it's like, okay, there's no place where everybody can fit in. But that's why I thought, I saw the film a few months ago with Pete Rollins. They flew us out to LA to see the film. And I had a more positive first reaction to it than my second viewing with everybody else. But I did like the idea of my parents being humanized. So I decided to go out to the premiere and do this. And I kind of along the way, I started to realize I was getting really stressed out about it, about going to the premiere. I mean, I've not been to a whole lot of premieres in my life, especially with like big movie stars. And I went along the line of realizing that I'm going to just have to go and realize I'm just going to try to enjoy myself. Because I'm overthinking this, people want, the media wants to talk to me and stuff like that. So part of the red carpet is that I just really didn't talk to anybody in the media. I just kind of walked through with Lori, and they took pictures and we did that thing. But I just said, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to have a good time, So I got there. I got to meet Steve Peters in person, finally. We've been friends for over a year and a half. We got to sit down and chat, and I was really excited about that. And at one point, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, if this just helps people hear Steve's message, the guy's been through hell and back, that's enough for me. Steve was lit up. He had a great time. Obviously, it was a bit more complicated for me because this is where a lot of my pain comes from in my life. When I go and see my analyst, in almost every single session, it comes back to my childhood that took place during this time. So that's where the wounds are. That's where the grieving begins. That's that's where I'm going. So for me, it's kind of like going back in time, and then seeing someone else's idea of what your life was like when you grew up. So I had to go in knowing all that, and honestly, I'll answer some questions because honestly, in a few minutes, because I don't really feel like I have that much to say about it. It was interesting, Yeah, I've been super sensitive with the press people. I haven't done a lot of press for it, and really the idea of doing the press is because I do love my mom. I do think that Jessica's heart is in the right place, and she really wants to see Mom's legacy go, and I think my mom would be proud to be remembered this way. I think we all want to be remembered for our love and our compassion. I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah, so it's you can see it's difficult, even difficult for me now to talk about it, and this just happened. But I've been sleeping for days because it just took the life out of me, to be honest with you. So yeah, I went, and there were drag queens everywhere and movie stars, and I got to meet Vincent, who's been in a ton of different movies, and I was a fan of his. He was the only person I asked to meet at the event, where I was like, is Vincent here? Is Vincent here? He plays Jerry Falwell. And I met Jerry Falwell. I actually sat down with Jerry Falwell for 45 minutes as a teenager. And a lot of people are like, oh, he kind of talked like a TV preacher. I'm like, Jerry Falwell, that's exactly how he sounded. So I was like, I wanted to meet Vincent and be like, you did a great job. Also, I loved you in you know, in Law and Order, and I loved you in Men in Black, and I loved you in The Cell, and I loved you and I just want to say I think your work is awesome, because I like when people tell me my work's good. So I just wanted to go up, and that's what I did. I went up, told him his work was awesome. Boop, that was it, you know. He retweeted my sister's song the other day, and then he tweeted, "Hey Jay," and we had a little conversation. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." But yeah, so you know, I went and walked the red carpet, and it was funny because, you know, it's like you're going into this thing based all around your life, and the majority of people there I don't think knew who I was. And so I was like, I said something to one of the drag queens. I said, "Oh yeah, my mom had a dress like that," and she's like, "Oh yeah, I borrowed it from her, thanks," because she didn't know who I was, so she was real snotty with me, or he was really snotty with me, and you go, "Oh, Jade, you just gendered him." Well, don't worry, because that's where I met him later, in the men's bathroom. And I said, "Hey, listen," I said, "I wasn't making fun of you. I am Tammy's son. I was complimenting you, letting you know that my mom had a dress just like that one." Oh, and I had said something else to another drag queen about their hair being mom hair. "Oh yeah, I know, I look like I'm going to the PTA meeting." And I went up to him later and said, "Listen," I said, "my mom is Tammy Faye." I was saying that haircut, I remember when my mom had that haircut, and she's like, "Oh my God," or he's like, "Oh my God, thank you," and hugged me and loved me on me. And so it was a really cool experience, but it was really strange, you know, because it was kind of like, it felt like being a ghost in a strange way, of like, you know, haunting your old life. And I'm only a baby in the movie. They had a scene with me and my dad talking, but they cut it out. And that my friend Kyle played me, and I met Kyle when he was making the film just online, but I really like this guy, and I really wish it was in the movie. But no, so I met Kyle, who played me, and but yeah, but I'm not in there, and so it's like it was like being a ghost, you know. And so we went through the red carpet. There were no juju beads, no candy. What's up with that? But they had Diet Cokes, lots of Diet Cokes, so I was a little bit in heaven with that, you know. You know, for someone to be like, "I need a drink," you know, that was me. I need a drink. A bunch of Diet Cokes. I put a Diet Coke on the red carpet and took a picture for my mom. You can see that on my Instagram if you want, or it might be on my Facebook as well. I've had to kind of like really watch my Facebook because people can be super mean, so I've had to edit. Like, people can't make comments on a lot of my Facebook pictures because I just don't want to deal with that at this point in my life. Went and saw the film, and to be honest with you, I started to get uncomfortable, and Lori, who went with me, looks over and says, "We don't have to stay here. We can go get a drink. You know, we can take off." "Oh no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine." But I went up. Now there's one scene where they got wrong, where my mom is pregnant with me, and it got wrong, and it was kind of upsetting for me. And so I got up, walked out, and this was kind of a cool thing. I'm not going to say it was a miracle, but I walk out, and they were playing the soundtrack on the movie outside in the movie area. And I walk out, and it's my sister's song playing. And that's my favorite part of the movie. Like, when I first saw the film, I cried a little bit, man. I bawled when my sister's song came on. And Pete was with me. I looked over at Pete, and Pete started to tear up. Now, if anybody knows Pete, Pete's not the biggest crier in the world. But anyway, so I walk out, I'm just like, "Oh, okay, this is a little much, this is a little much." And all of a sudden I hear my sister's voice. You know, "Don't give up." I'm like, "Oh, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sissy Sue." It was just nice to have my sister and hear my sister there. And so that to me, to me, it was just like a nice moment that I had. And I went back in, and it started getting towards the 90s, and a lot of trauma for me in the 90s because I worked on my dad's case. My parents got divorced. Most people don't know, but I was the one who told my dad that my mom was divorcing him, and a lot of that stuff. And like I said, I'm not in there at all. So it's kind of like I'm a ghost in my own life in some of these weird scenes. And I just finally said, "Lori," I said, "we got to go. Can we go?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's go." She's like, "I'll watch it later. I'll watch it when it comes out on Netflix." So we got up and we walked out. And the cool thing was I did get it. You know, you wouldn't expect the star of the movie to be noticing what's happening in the audience. I got a text from Jessica being like, "I saw you leave early. Is everything okay?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just tough." She's like, "The 90s part is kind of tough on you, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, so we'll see you at the premiere." And so me and Lori went to go out to a bar, but then we were talking outside, and before I knew it, they left. They let everybody out. I was like, oh, I guess we should just go straight over to the after party, and so it was like, oh, I hope I'm not going too long, guys. If I am, let me know. I have the most listeners I've had in years, so I'm going to guess that maybe it's not that bad. So people are coming out, and then all of a sudden people are starting to talk about the movie. Now, two of the things that was hard too is that there's one scene, and this is kind of what got me to walk out. It was the lowest point in our family's life is it really in there. There's a scene that's kind of in there that was this interview that my parents gave. And my dad kind of has like this Freudian slip, if you will. And everybody laughs. Now, for me, this was the darkest time in my life. And the darkest, for me, I was shoved from being a kid to dealing with very adult issues and situations all of a sudden, and seeing your parents completely broken in front of me. And so to hear people laugh at that moment was I get it. If I was somebody else, I get it. I am able to empathize. I understand. But for me, it was very hard to do. And so that was one reason I was like, let's get out of here. And so we're outside, and so people are starting to talk about the movie. I'm like, let's just get in the car. They provided a car to drive us around. That was really cool. And so we got in the car and drove to the after party. And first thing that happens, I walk into the after party, and there's someone holding a plate. At the right side, I get out of the elevator, holding one of the server's plates full of drinks, and it's all just Diet Cokes. Would you like a Diet Coke? I was like, oh, hell yeah, I want a Diet Coke. Boom, give me one. Hit me. Keep them coming. And then I find I'm an introvert. So if you ever see me at parties, or you know me, or you see me at events or anything like that, or shows, like when Revolution used to do concert shows, I would work the door and sell the tickets, because I just was, that way I got to say hello to everybody, but I didn't have to stand in the crowd, And so I found a little quiet spot outside. There was a little ledge on the outside, beautiful view of New York, and I just went and sat there. And Steve came over, and we talked, and I had a lollipop, and it was really fun. Because when you're with Steve, it's like, he's got a very parenting, motherly vibe about him, very compassionate, understanding, someone who's been through hell, so it's just, there's no prohibition of conversations when you're with Steve. Let's put it that way. So it was good. So we hung out and talked a little bit, and Jessica, are you okay? Is everything all right? Yeah, I'm fine. So I'm sitting here talking, and they're bringing us little tidbits, bites to eat, kind of white trashy food that I think my mom would have liked. The only thing that would have been better is Applebee's had done it. So we're eating, met different people, meeting stars, like famous people that you know, but you don't know their names, and they're like talking to me and like trying to explain to me how the difference between fiction and nonfiction and autobiography. And I'm just like, oh, gosh. Oh, no, this is the really hard part. When I first got there and I sat down, walked in and sat down, and there was a group of people, I think that worked for the company, talking about the film with lots of opinions. And I'm sitting there like in the darkness, like Batman, hearing them. And it's kind of driving me crazy. And I looked at Lori and I said, listen, I'll be right back. And she was being so cool and so understanding. She's like, do what you got to do, man. And I went and said, hey, listen, I hear you guys have a lot of opinions about this. I'm like, but this was my life. And I'm sitting right there. I'm like, so, either maybe have the conversation somewhere else, or feel free to come and talk to me about it. I'd be glad to talk to you guys. I'm right there, right next to you. But this is my life. And because that's just the truth, I have to live my truth, I like that Joe Strummer said the great thing about punk rock is it asks the question, give me some truth. Give me a little bit of truth. Before the film, I listened to John Lydon, who's Johnny Rotten. I listened to this album, the Sex Pistols album, and then I listened to some PIL, especially that song Rise, over and over again. Anger is an energy, because that's somebody who kind of lives their truth, and I kind of like that guy. We don't agree on everything, but man, I like the spirit of John Lydon, and so I kind of felt like, hey, I'm gonna let punk rock come and embrace me a little bit. And they played crazy music. Everybody was dancing. Kind of felt like a after party at a wedding. There were like a wedding reception or something. And so yeah, the director came up and talked with me, and the director, Michael, which is crazy, is he used to be on this comedy TV show called The State. And in high school, I used to watch The State religiously, and they played it all the time on MTV. So I grew up with him and his skit comedy and stuff. And here he is directing a film about my mom. I'm going like, man, this is blowing my mind, And I'm talking about skits that they did on his show, and Steve was sitting right next to me, and I think Steve kind of gave me the security to say, hey, here's the issues I had with the film. I really wish you would have had me and my sister help you a little bit more with this film, because we could have taken it and made it even something better, because to be honest with you, truth is so much stranger than fiction, folks, growing up on that stuff. But we had a really good, frank conversation, and that was really cool. And then I got another text from Jessica. Hey, I'm just thinking about you. I'm worried about you. And I'm like, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm talking to the director right now outside. She's like, oh, you're here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here. And she's like, great. Well, I'm out on the dance floor. Please come out and see me, and it reminded me, I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, Say Anything. And the main character is Lloyd Dobler. And he gets like the valedictorian girl to go on a date with him. And he takes her to the end of year bash party, but he becomes the key master. So he has to take every person's keys so they don't drive home drunk. And later she's talking about being at that party about Lloyd. And she's like, we didn't talk much at the party, but he was always looking out for me. He was always making sure I was okay. And she was like, really, and she was talking about why Lloyd's special. And to me, it was kind of funny. I felt like, Jessica Chastain was my Lloyd Dobler, and at the after party, is like, she kind of just kept watching me. And of course, I had my buddy Steve and Lori, who was just there helping me out, and had a few good conversations. They had these baby blue phones from the movie on all the prayer line or the donation line phones all along the outside on the tables. And I may have gotten a little bit crazy and stole one and put it in my bag and taken it back with me. So if you need to call the prayer line, I'm here waiting to take your calls. Because it was a party, I needed to do something that was, teenage Jay. So I did. And then I sent some pictures of me in different places to Jessica, letting her know that I had taken the phone. Me in the car, me in my bathrobe with I tied with a towel around and put it up like my sister used to when I was a kid, and I'm on the phone. So I kind of made some fun with it. But yeah, so that's what I did. It was tough. It wasn't easy. But I ended up finding Jessica at the end, tracked her down. She was on the dance floor, and it's like all this loud music. It was literally like being in my 20s again, like at the club, we're like, yeah, that was really, you did a great job. Yeah, this was hard, and trying to have this conversation, but we did. And so yeah, that was kind of a wild experience. And then got home at 1:30 in the morning, all hyped up on Diet Cokes. So I don't know if Josh found the request button. I love technical difficulties. Hello? God loves you, it really does. How may I help you? Let's see if there's any questions. There's a lot of laughter. a lot of laughter. I love the phone. Here's Steve. I love the phone that you took it. I know. I felt bad. I'm like, I was like, and of course I'm like, Baker stole something from the party. And I even heard the security being like, we've got phones that we need to, I think they kind of saw me do it. And I was just like, oh, please ask me to open my bag, please. But I made it through the security, and at the end, they also had up cake pops with eyelashes on them, which I thought was really cute. I'm going to try one more time, and if we don't get him, then we'll give up. But I'm going to prove you one more time. Here we go. See if you make it on this time. So yeah, I had some fun. So I didn't get paid by the movie company. There he is, but I did get.
Yes, it worked.
Hey, are you the Blair Witch Project?
I know, right? It's look at that. Okay.
Crying.
I tried to do it on the computer, but it didn't try to go mobile. That's why I'm
Yeah, you know, all about mobile phones nowadays, man.
All right.
So Josh is here to read your questions and I will answer them. So if you have questions, nail us. We'll do about 5 minutes of questions, 10 minutes of questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Somebody did ask me though about making a donation, and honestly, that's how this church survives, and we barely survive, to be honest with you folks. But if you go to revolutionchurch.com/donate, you can make a donation to the church there financially. And also Steve is always on me about making sure that we raise money. As you know, I have some old parts of my life that make it kind of weird asking for people to donate money. You can't even promise a blessing, but you'll get more revolution.
So,
all right.
Hi, Tammy. Tammy says hi to me. Hi. Your song was great. We stayed for the whole closing credits for it. So it was awesome.
Nice.
Let's see. So do you want me to scroll back up for a little bit to see, or?
I mean, you can see if there's any questions. If nobody has any questions, it's so funny that because this is called After, where we all have our little conversation. You can even ask about my talk at the beginning if you want. But people get kind of quiet. Somebody's got to come out and ask the first question. I'm guessing that maybe Steve will. Oh, do we have one from Keith?
Keith Tyler. Cannot imagine what this life has been like for Jay and Tammy Sue. They wouldn't remember me because they were children when I did some work for PTL. The story is much more complicated than can be accurately captured within the time constraints of a film or documentary. Jim and Tammy Faye were complex characters with their stories involve jaw-dropping and admirable characteristics, but the public gravitates to only the seedy side of the story, the Freudian missteps and very incorrect misassumptions. I have been approached for stories about my encounters with Jim and Tammy Faye, and they never landed because I insist on being fair and honest. I don't trash people for profit. When I served at PTL, Jim was always busy interacting with guests, so I didn't have much interaction with him. Meanwhile, hold on, where was I? Meanwhile, Tammy Faye rehearsed and interacted with musicians and normally known in the Christian TV world as servant nobodies. They always made every effort to treat all of us nobodies, in quotation marks, as comrades and fellow equals. She stands alone as the only Christian celebrity who didn't treat others as underlings. When the rubber hit the road and Jerry Falwell, and that was my own commentary of Jerry Falwell, and the Christian Family Values Coalition, who were anything but moral and humane during the height of the AIDS crisis, Tammy Faye single-handedly took on the issue as a warrior. She took on the commandments of Christ like a warrior, and she was disparaged by the evangelical Christian movement. How dare she be compassionate and loving to the outcast of society? Jim Bakker embodies Tammy Faye's spirit. He's not a sellout to any tribe, and he follows Christ's teaching, and for some hateful and bigoted reasons, the evangelical Christian Moments believes Jay must be punished for this. So
that's the fun.
Then April Gallagher said, "Why didn't the directors involve the kids for real life experiences?"
I don't know. Like, we talked a little bit, and even the director didn't even be able to seem to give me a solid answer. I think it's kind of like a Hollywood political thing. You know, I mean, Elton John's doing a musical about my mom, and I was talking to one of the people from it, and as soon as I said, "Hey, why don't you get me and my sister involved?" they stopped talking to me.
Yeah.
It's really strange. I hope, you know, me and Pete Rollins and Helen are working on a documentary right now with Vice Magazine that I think will be very interesting. For the next year, we'll be working on that. And I think people will see something different. My sister will also be involved with that. So I think people will see some things that are a bit different there, depending on the direction we end up deciding on going, but they'll see something different either way. But yeah, it was funny. It's like, I think that it's like this Hollywood thing. I don't know what they're afraid of. because anybody with like normal leadership skills can just be like, no, we're going to ignore the kids, or, you know, or no, we're not going to do what you recommended. But they could also be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that happened. Like there's a scene where these kids are making fun of my mom in the film. I'm going to try not to talk too much about the film today. I really wanted to just talk the premiere, but where she meets these kids who are making fun of her and she gives them autographed pictures. But the real story happened in Palm Desert Town Center Mall that me and my mom frequented quite a bit. She was by herself and she was living in the desert, in Palm Desert. And these kids made fun of her, and she went up and she introduced herself and said, hey, if you're going to make fun of me, at least meet me, get to know me. And she was, matter of fact, are you guys hungry? And they're like, sure. She's like, you know, there's a Marie Callender's up there. They've got great pie. If you guys want to go, I'll buy you whatever you want. And you guys can sit and talk to me and I'll ask any questions you want. And she went and sat with these kids for an hour in the mall, talking to them and getting to know them. I hope to one day meet one of these kids because they're probably adults now, definitely adults now. That's something that even I don't think I would like somebody telling me off. I wouldn't, making fun of me, be like, hey, you want to go grab a burger? You know, you want to go Taco Bell? Taco Bell Grande on me. And I told the director that story, you know, and he said he was going to get in touch with me and we were going to have more conversations. You know, I'm not going to hold my breath. I've written books before, and if you've been in the book industry, you really don't have a whole lot of expectations on companies or events or whatever this is. Was that it?
So we had James Chapman say, why wasn't James Chapman in the movie played by Leo DiCaprio? Amby said, yes, she was a hero. Lucy Boheme, when this COVID pandemic is over, would it be possible to have you and Tammy Sue hold a concert together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's possible. Yes.
And then Steve,
if this thing ever.
Oh, sorry. Steve Peters said they don't want to know the truth. It might spoil their storyline, which I believe is in response to April Gallagher.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, let's see. I love the story. Roberta said, I love that story about your mom. I have to admit, I was critical of your mom until I saw the old documentary on her. I fell in love with her. And Tammy Sue said, yes, we would do a concert.
Okay, there you go. The answer is yes. One of the cool things about the movie is it was based off of this documentary called The Eyes of Tammy Faye, done by World of Wonder. And the guys who own World of Wonder were there. We hung out, but they're working with us a little bit on the doc. And that documentary is really incredible, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. At least I think so. So I would recommend checking out that documentary, finding it and watching it, because it's really good. And you get to see both of my parents talk and my sister talk. And I think I'm in it for like 10 seconds. You get to see me go. You get to hear me talk enough. So that's fine.
Steve says, tell them how you would have ended the movie with your mom leading the drag queens and singing Jesus Loves Me.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's how my mom was at a pride parade. And this is how I would end it. They ended it her singing it. I won't tell you. You're going to have to see the film. Not going to spoil the end. But I would have ended the film with my mom singing at the gay pride parade, leading everybody in Yes, Jesus Loves Me. Because I think that was kind of the redemptive moment. And it's also, ironically, I feel like the gay community, the LGBTQ community, that kind of helped redeem my mom. And now kind of Hollywood, who's trying their own ways of redemption. Unfortunately, the church never really showed up there. I mean, honestly, you know, here we are, we're supposed to be redeemers and forgivers and restorers, and we just really don't know how to do it. We're really good at judging, which is not really actually against any like biblical mandate. So maybe we could get better at restoring people. There's enough people with criticism. You don't have to worry that someone's not going to get critiqued. They're going to get critiqued. You know, we as the church, it's our job to heal people. You know, I saw somebody who said, like, I'll stop going to the church when they stop protecting, you know, abusers. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I get what you're saying. You know, like we shouldn't have abusers who are ministers and practicing stuff like that. But we also have to learn to try to help those people not be abusers. You know, we're called to be a hospital, and the church is unfortunately a hospital that doesn't allow in sick people, you know, and we're not called to be judge and jury. We're called to be a hospital, and unfortunately we're not that. Got anything else there, buddy?
So Lucy says if you go to World of Wonder streaming platform, they just released deleted footage from the doc. There is a scene with Tammy Sue bringing her boys to see her at the airport, and it's so cute and fun. James is so tiny.
Yeah,
then,
James is a tiny. So is his uncle. I'm his uncle.
Brian Kilroy, no real question. Just want to say I always love hearing your take on everything, and your take on this is extremely interesting and valuable to hear. Terry said, right, the church.
I think we'll set up something where we do a talk about the film, like the kind of if Rolling Stone doesn't call me asking me to do, what was real and what wasn't, we'll probably do our own little Rolling Stone behind the scenes, behind the music.
Keith said, good question. These film projects never involve anyone related to or working alongside these main characters. Not one of these efforts has ever involved a relative, employee, or contractor directly related to Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. There's a reason for that, and it involves demographic targets, editorial slant, and end profits. We live in an age when drama trumps truth, regardless of what it costs anyone else, or regardless of what it costs anyone else or one's own character or integrity. And Lucy said, Tammy Faye once said our lives are supposed to be hospitals, not courtrooms.
Right. Well, one of the things that's interesting about that is, like, me and my sister, we had some involvement with talking to the actors, and that was the most. And we were so grateful because we were grateful for the crumbs from the tables, because no one has ever had us involved with any of this stuff. And another thing I noticed was, as I was watching the actors do interviews, like, and reading some of their interviews, is that the press doesn't even do actual fact checking anymore. Like, they go to like Wikipedia, because some of their stuff literally just lines out of Wikipedia. I've been divorced for 3 years, and there was a picture of me and my date, and they said it was my ex-wife. You know what I mean? Because they just went to Wikipedia, and my Wikipedia doesn't say I'm divorced from my last wife, so everybody thinks so they just went to Wikipedia and go, oh, it must have been her. I've never seen my dad's charges actually put right. Usually they just use the word bilking. Most people don't know that my dad was never charged with stealing $1, or a dime, in his charges. So it's strange. Like, it's the people who are supposed to bring us facts, not Hollywood, but the very press itself can't even get the story right. And that's what's tough, and what's really ironic to me, though, is how people trust the press more. I was talking to literally a historian of Christianity, famous writer, you would know the name if I said it, who's made an accusation about my dad. And I said, you've got this wrong. And I explained to them what the actual story was. And they said, well, the guy from the Charlotte Observer said this, and the Wikipedia page says this. And I was like, you're a historian. Like, now I can never read one of your books ever again and think that you're an actual historian, and then saying, like, well, you're just their kid, so of course you're going to see it this way. So it's kind of funny how we kind of disrespect people who've lived through it, because we hear what we want to hear, to the point where we can have someone who actually sat down, had a conversation about a very story, knows exactly what happened, but we don't want to hear the truth. So often we really don't want to hear the truth. We want people to live into our prejudices. We want people to live into our stereotypes. We need a scapegoat so bad that we need the scapegoat to fit into that mold. And I think it's often is because we don't want to see ourselves as judges, as we don't want to see ourselves as persecutors. And the thing is it's okay. That's human nature, to judge and to be that way. But what's even better is it's okay to say, hey, I was wrong. I had misjudgments. I believed this, and now I see it. It's okay. We're complicated. It's okay to say you were wrong. I think that's one of the hardest things you can do. Any more questions?
Some are still coming in. We have Zoe said, I would have liked to see more of an arc for your dad. He changed so much in prison and had some very beautiful things to say. He got one line that came close to showing it.
Yeah.
Then Zoe, when they were commenting on your take on the media said Jay is a pastor of a church that meets in a bowling alley, which they saw in an article before. Then any good support groups for beat up AG youth pastors or pastors that you know of? Jeff Gallagher asked.
I don't know. I mean, I think attending these weekly services is probably a good place. And the reason I'd say that is often those times, and it's good, sometimes you need some place to blow off steam. I see this a lot with deconstruction, though, is modern deconstruction. Is a lot of modern deconstruction sounds like it's just people blowing off steam and being angry for what they've been through rather than actual literal deconstruction. And so I guess my thing there is like, hey, say you're setting up a support group, not necessarily deconstructing, because there comes a time where you have to stop. You have to let that anger go, and you have to find the construction in it, and you have to reconstruct your life and not live in that moment and not live in that bitterness. And you have to face even what responsible. I've learned this in the 12-step group, is you kind of have to even learn like what was your role in that, and that's tough to look at, especially when you're angry. So it takes time, and that's why in the 12 steps it's not right away that you do that. But we have to learn that we're in a dance in a way in the church, and that it's not just the church at this way. It's almost any organizations have these similar issues, and for some reason we think it's special to the church and this pain. But people are contradictions. People are hypocrites, in every aspect of life. And so I think if we can take away that magical thinking that it's only us, we all suffer, and we all suffer in different ways, and I think that's important. But I'd say come here. I'd also say find a good therapist. That's what I've done, is found a really good therapist over the years that I could talk to and really work this stuff out, because so much of it is really complicated. But I know there's got to be some support groups out there as well. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's not the road I took.
Eddie said, at the premiere, was there anyone you really wanted to see or meet or hadn't seen in a long time? P.S. Jay and Tammy Sue, thank you for your love and truths, and my husband and I love your mama.
Like Vince, I wanted to meet Vincent. That was like, he was the one guy I wanted to meet, and I got to meet him on the pink carpet. It wasn't actually red. I didn't realize that until like 3 days later, because I was just like, whoa. But yeah, I got to meet Vincent. I really wanted to meet him. Jessica, of course, was amazing. Like I said, so yeah, got to see the guys from World of Wonder, and that was great. Yeah, it was, nothing. And Steve, Steve was I was just happy to meet Steve in person, and this was a great excuse for us to get together and hang out. So we got to meet in his hotel room at first, and then we had brunch the next day, and then we hung out at the post party. And so, yeah, it was cool.
Because we just came from the movie right before this, and when Vincent D'Onofrio's character walked on screen for the first time and does like the freeze frame and says who it is, I let out like an audible like moan, and like my wife like nudged my ribs to let me know that I was like making a like a moaning of despair when
It comes out very Reservoir Doggy.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. And then the name popped up. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we have a few more. It looks like it's dwindling down. Chrissy said,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Christy said, how can they make movies about your life and not have your permission or compensate you in some way? I am sure they'll make millions. Talk about crumbs from the table. Brian said, love the windshield wiper impression Jay does with his fingers when he talks. Then we have Keith said, please underscore the point. Keith says, please underscore the point that Jay's efforts and his voice are heard by countless numbers of us out here. Faceless screen names who support and understand that truth and life are complex. We need people like Jay who have a platform and a voice to be heard for being fair and honest in any story. What can we do to help this and any related effort in this global conversation? Is it donations or thumbs up or subscribing somewhere? How can we provide tangible support for Jay's efforts?
Well, I mean, that's all of those. I mean, donations really do help a lot because it gives us better ways to be able to reach more people and get onto more platforms. I'm going to sound like a televangelist, but honestly, that was the truth behind televangelists too. And they were just trying to get more platforms to talk, be heard. So by donating, that really helps us. Also helps me pay my bills and not feel insane. Um, I have a board that votes on my pay and all that kind of stuff. But also retweeting and sharing our talks and sharing on Facebook and sharing it on Instagram and sharing it in your stories and letting people know we're out there. It's like, I remember when everybody used to retweet each other. Now it's like barely ever get a retweet, and though all those things help, like if you can't donate financially to, you can retweet, you can share it, you can tell people about it, you can even tell your friends about it, you can even send them a text, about what we're doing. And if churches in your area, or bars in your area, I'm glad to come out and we can do a talk out there. I mean, there's all sorts of things we can do. If you have a podcast, I can do your podcast. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to support what we're doing. Josh kind of knows more of the technical side of what we need help with. He's over there. So
yeah, anything that I'm not like a super IT person, but I refuse to be stumped. So if anyone has a question like that or a way they want to get in touch with Jay or have him talk or something, I will figure it out somehow if it is possible. Come hell or high water. Zoe asked, did Kyle, the guy that played you, get to go to the premiere?
he was not at the premiere, probably because he was cut out of the movie. So it probably wasn't something he wanted to do. I was actually the one who told him he was cut out of the movie, which was kind of bummer. I didn't realize that. I was like, oh yeah, they cut us out of the movie. He's like, oh. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be the one who told you. He's like, no, I'm glad you told me. I didn't want to take my friends and be like, hey, I'm in this movie and then not be in it. So, let's do 2 more questions and then wrap this up.
Okay. Did Mr. Peters and your mom ever finally meet in person? Was she ever able to give him that hug? Steve could probably answer that.
I don't know. Good question. He could probably answer that if he's still here. If not, I'll find out.
He was here 2 minutes ago, so we'll see. Maybe there's a little delay. But Brian said, I wanted to say to the dude in the yellow shirt, which is me, is doing a great job moderating these questions. He makes sure all are asked. This is a great format moving forward. 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. We honestly didn't talk about moving forward with it, but it's something that we could talk about if it really helps Jay. Hopefully we figure out the hiccups beforehand, so we're not problem solving. Yeah. Lucy asked, will we ever see your mom's music and shows re-released? And Steve said, no, they did not.
Oh, that's too bad. I don't know. Me and my sister will probably be talking about that in the future, so we'll let you know.
There's a question, is Caleb okay?
Yeah, Caleb's doing well. He's been working on things, and we talked a week ago, I think, and he's, working things out. That's such personal stuff with what's going on with Caleb. So, he's on Instagram and Twitter as well. So, if you can reach out to him there, I believe it's like Caleb Revolution or Revolution Caleb.
Revolution Caleb, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can, also reach out to him there and chat with him a bit.
So it looks like
he's got
some people are answering other questions and referring to people that are in chat. So I think we're good. The only thing that I have that stuck out to me in the movie is, do you guys really have a connection to the Monster Mash? That made me be like, well, there's a line that said, I haven't had this feeling since the Monster Mash, and I was like, me and my wife love that song. So, and that pinball. So.
All true. Yeah. That part, at least.
that one line, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that line. No, there's some good stuff. And one day we'll do a Q&A about that as well. But for that, today I just wanted to focus on this, and then maybe set up something a little bit more collective that we can all just do together. Maybe like a Zoom chat or something where we can do like 15 people like 15 people at a time or 10 people at a time or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's more of a conversation than me and you going like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah,
You know,
no,
so we can all
cool.
kind of talk.
I'll
Maybe we can
definitely-
do like what are those things? There was that one where you can talk on that one app.
Oh, like
I don't know.
WhatsApp
It's so popular.
and
You can't remember the Clubhouse. Clubhouse.
Okay,
We could do
yeah.
something like a Clubhouse for it. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everybody for coming today. Josh, thanks for your help today.
yeah, of course.
And hey, we'll be here next week as always. And if you do want to support what we're doing financially, it's revolutionchurch.com/donations. Tell people about us. Let us know, let us know what you think in the comments. And if you like what we're doing, share it with others. Thanks a lot. Be blessed. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.